Prayojan, hello, welcome. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I have a question for you. What means meditation for you and how do you meditate?
Mm-hmm. In our tradition, meditation is a technical term.
Mm-hmm.
In Sanskrit, it's called dhyan. Dhyan. And this technical term has been defined in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in other Vedic literatures. And essentially what it means is, first of all, that dhyan, meditation, should have an object. And that object is God. So, when one remembers God, just in a general way, one is just starting to focus the mind. That is called smaran, or just remembrance. And when the mind, which by nature is very restless, begins to settle down, and one can focus one's thoughts on just one aspect of God for 12 seconds without the mind wandering to another subject. So the 12 seconds steady focus on one aspect of God, which for us is Krishna, that then another level of consciousness arises, and that is called dharana, or concentration.
Yes.
And then, as one begins to practice concentration, when 12 seconds times 12 seconds, that means 12 dharanas, one comes to that stage where you can come to the stage of 12 times 12 seconds with a full focused mind. Then you enter into another level of experience, and that is called dhyan, meditation. And then after that, when that dhyan becomes deeper, it's called dhruva anusmriti, or fixed and continuous awareness of God. And finally it turns into samadhi, which is trance. So in these different stages, the different aspects of Krishna are realized. For example, the method that we use is the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when you begin to chant the mantra, first you're remembering the name of Krishna. So that's called Nam Smaran, remembering the name. And then as one sinks into the state of dharana, or concentration, then the roop, the actual transcendental divine form of God, manifests from the mantra. Because the mantra is considered in the Vedas abhinatvam nama namino, that the name of God and God himself are non-different. In Christian theology, that's called onomatodoxy. Onomatodoxy is the theological doctrine that there's no difference at all between God and the name of God. So you can approach God through chanting his names.
Yes.
So as you go on chanting and fixing your mind on the mantra, without any imagination or creative visualization, simply by the mantra's own power, then the roop, or that is the form of Krishna, how he's playing a flute, smiling, standing in his very charming way, that manifests in the heart. So we go from the Nam Smaran, remembering God's name, to Rup Dharan, concentration on the form of Krishna. So then when that concentration continues, slowly one's consciousness expands. You see, the thing is, our consciousness can contract and expand. And as long as the consciousness is contracted, we actually cannot accommodate the conception of God at all. So many people have different ideas, they quarrel with each other, but it's simply, it's a no-starter. We have to know how to expand the consciousness. So by focusing the mind on the mantra, slowly the consciousness expands. So you can accommodate the self-manifest name of God, and then his form, and as consciousness expands more, and we go into a state of dhyan, the level of meditation, then within the form of Krishna appear his qualities. Because the form is simply the form, that is the shape. But the body of Krishna is soft, it's fragrant, has so many qualities. So then in dhyan the qualities begin to manifest. And then also the associates, because God doesn't live in a vacuum. Krishna with Radha, the goddess of love, and his associates with whom he eternally plays in bliss in the spiritual world, they manifest also as the jhana becomes deeper. And then in the next stage, the Dhruva Anusmriti, fixed and continuous remembrance. Now the form of Krishna and his associates begin to play together, and that's called Leela, pastimes. And so it's not a question of creative visualization or memorizing a script of a spiritual drama or anything. All this power is coming directly from the mantra, directly from the holy names. So that is called, in the stage of Dhruva Anusmriti, continuous remembrance, the appearance of Leela. And then the final stage is beautiful. That is Samadhi, or trance. And that is the stage where you begin to experience that you have a beautiful spiritual form, just like those associates, the angels, if you like, the associates of God. And in trance, you yourself are no longer an observer of a divine Leela, a divine play, but you enter into it and participate yourself. So then that's the final stage. So all of these taken together are essentially the discipline of meditation, but their specific names are Smaran, remembrance, Dharan, concentration, Dhyan, meditation, Dhruva Anusmriti, continuous fixed remembrance, and finally Samadhi, trance.
Okay.
So actually in this life we experience a vyadi. A vyadi means pains in the body and disease. And we experience adi. Adi means psychological difficulties.
Yeah.
So the only way to transcend the vyadi and the adi is samadhi, to go into the state of trance.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to have a daily practice. You see?
Yeah.
Just like a child learning to ride a bicycle, at first the balance is difficult,
Yeah.
but they get the hang of it. So in the same way, to get the equilibrium of mind, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Because we're actually, especially in modern culture, where there's a lot of attention deficit disorder,
Yeah.
so many distractions.
Yeah.
Social media has also intensified that in many ways. No problem if you're watching YouTube, just don't do it 5 hours every day. And so there's a lot of problems with focusing attention these days. So just to come to a state of peaceful mind, that takes some practice for some time, and then to slowly go through the stages of equilibrium and steadying the mind, it really takes some years of daily practice.
Yeah.
But the result does come if one is determined, humble, one persists, one is very perseverant, and also depending on the grace of God, because by our own power we are very limited.
Yeah.
So we have to be devoted and propitiate the Supreme Consciousness, Sri Krishna, for a descent of grace to help us get to the final goal.
Yeah, you mentioned Radha and Krishna. My question is, what means God for you, or the divine? Yeah.
Well, there are two broad categories of conception in regard to transcendence.
Yeah.
And one is the impersonal conception, that the highest truth is a light, or a oneness, which is devoid of individual characteristics. So that's there, and we find that kind of conception in many religious paths, in Buddhism, in Jainism, and in some type of Gnostic or mystical aspects of Islam or Christianity and Sikhism as well. But our Bhakti tradition sees that light is an incomplete understanding, that light is really the aura, the effulgence of the Supreme Person. So God is a person. I'm a conscious personal being, and just as many photons, small parcels of energy emanate from the sun. So every soul is like a photon of spiritual energy coming from the original spiritual sun. So as we are conscious, God is conscious. God has Gyan Shakti, that means awareness, consciousness, and then Icha Shakti, the power to desire, and Kriya Shakti, the power to act. You see? And everyone should be very firmly convinced that God is a person. And the reason is this: if the foundation of all being is impersonal, having no features, that means it has no desire, and therefore it would not create the world. So the fact that the world exists means that its ultimate cause is a person with awareness and with desire, and a Kriya Shakti, the power to make those desires materialize as well. So God is, first of all, personal. And then, many religions also recognize, Christianity and other religions recognize that God is a person, and we're the servants of God. We should serve Him with love, not to get any worldly gain, but just to please Him. And but within our tradition there's some speciality, and that is the not just the metaphysics of God, but the aesthetics of God. So in our tradition, beyond the metaphysical analysis that God is like the president of reality, presiding over all aspects of existence, being omniscient, omnipotent and omnipresent, there's something more, and that is that God is the supreme artist. And that includes music, art, poetry, dance, and especially drama. Because drama invokes the entire spectrum of emotions. You see, from tragedy to comedy and suspense, excitement, adventure, romance, all of these things that people are very, people spend millions and billions of dollars every year going to pay to sit in a dark room and stare at the wall. And that's called cinema. Right? Why do people pay to sit in a dark room and stare at the wall? Because obviously the movie is being projected there, and what they get from it is a roller coaster ride of many different emotions. And when they've been through a whole spectrum of many emotions, then at the end of the movie they feel satisfied. You see? So this world is a reflection, like a shadow of the spiritual world. And so in the spiritual world there are not the shadow emotions that we feel here, but the entire spectrum of loving emotions in their true, pristine, perfect and eternal forms. And so in our tradition, see Krishna being a supreme personality of Godhead, has a beautiful transcendental form. He has wonderful relationships with his devotees, and his what is called Leela Shakti, his pastime potency, manifests beautiful dramas of love between himself and his devotees, in which every soul is fully satisfied by tasting the entire spectrum of the flavors of spiritual love. And therefore, in our tradition, God is called Krishna. Let me put it this way. English, French, German, Italian, Greek, Latin, Lithuanian, Russian, all these languages, they're called Indo-European because their root is Sanskrit. So there's a word in all of these languages, it's practically the same in every language, which means compelling beauty that inspires devotion. This is the dictionary definition, Oxford English Dictionary definition. There's a word, and it's the same, it has the same meaning in all languages, compelling beauty. It's a beauty that magnetically attracts you, and it inspires you to be devoted to that object of beauty. And the word in English and in French and Latin and Russian is charisma. Charisma. And charisma has its root from the Sanskrit Krishna. Krishna. The original source of all compelling beauty that inspires devotion in every soul. So his name is Krishna.
Interesting. Let me take a check if everything is all right. Yes. How do you connect with Krishna?
Yes, this is very essential topic. The Vedas explain that God has primarily three energies. His spiritual energy that manifests the spiritual, eternal, beautiful plane, the realm of God, the kingdom of God, if you like. And he has his material energy, which manifests all of the material universes. So there are countless material universes. And then the third energy is a marginal potency. Just like a tortoise, a turtle, can go on the land or go in the water. And it's amphibious, he can go in both places. So in the same way, the Tatastha Shakti, or the marginal potency, that's us, the souls. We ourselves, the souls, can be connected with the material world or with the spiritual world by directing our will. You see?
Beautiful.
By directing our will. And so it's down to every individual. How can you connect with God? Come to your will. Your will is the root of everything. What are you willing? What is it that you are desiring? So you can take your own pulse and heartbeat and examine, be introspective and say, what is it that I want? Now for most people it's, well, I want security, I want happiness, and for that perhaps I need money. I want to be loved, I want to love someone, like this. And but we want to find that in the material plane. And therefore our motivation, our desire is directed towards the material energy, and that's why we as souls experience the material world. It's as simple as that. How do we connect with God? We have to turn the focus of our desire away from searching for satisfaction, security, luxury, whatever, stimulation for ourselves, and focus on just trying to please God. So that's called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means, yoga, you're asking how do you connect? Yoga means union. Yoga means how you connect. Yukta means engaged, connected. So yoga means to connect with God. And how do you do that? There are different aspects of Bhakti Yoga. Hearing about Krishna, chanting, singing about Krishna, remembering Krishna. In the temple there are statues, the deity, and the deities are served there. Reading, writing. There are so many different ways in decorating the temples, and serving God's devotees as well is also accepted as a service towards God. So all of these different methods of bhakti, bhakti yoga, even though they look different, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they're turning your attention away from the absorption or infatuation with the glitter of the temporary material world, of the ephemeral plane, which is exactly like a dream which will disappear, leaving behind not a trace. Turning a consciousness away from that and directing it towards Krishna. And when the consciousness is fully focused on God, then one transcends the physical plane and enters into the spiritual energy. And you don't have to die to do that. You know, a lot of people have the idea that when you die, then God will give you the reward of bringing him to his kingdom. No, because the material world and the spiritual world, that experience depends on our state of consciousness. So it doesn't depend on being alive or dead. When you're in that state of consciousness, you can experience it. And if you're not, you can't. And if you die and you're not in that consciousness, you're not going to get a free ticket to go there. The soul will just take birth again in another body, and you'll be the exact same person doing the exact same things in the next life. Of course your body will be different because your karma, the reactions of karma will come. So the physical body changes, but you take your psychological body, your astral body with you, and so you can understand what type of mentality a person had in their previous life because they brought their mind with them. So the body's changed, but it's the same person. So there are no free tickets or free gifts that you die and you automatically go somewhere. You have to attain that plane of spiritual awareness now in this life. And if that's the case, when the moment of death comes, then the self leaves the body and enters into the land of Krishna called Vrindavan. Vrindavan, the beautiful enchanting forest of Vrindavan, that's Krishna's abode. But if the mind still has any even last lingering remnant of attachment to the world, that will bring the consciousness in another life for another birth to either fulfill that desire or be purified of that desire.
Okay. And on a practical basis, how do you do it? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, our daily life is quite regulated, and that's important, to have a rhythm in life, to not have a very erratic existence. That's not favorable for concentration.
Yeah.
So to have a regulated life is very good. So usually we rise in the morning at 4 o'clock, and immediately, actually as soon as we open our eyes, we bow down and offer prayers to our spiritual teacher, to our guru and to his guru, and then we sing some prayers to Krishna, and then go to the shower completely, put on fresh cloth and the tilak markings, which is a ritual purification, and then we go to the temple.
Yes.
So then in the temple, there's usually a deity of Sri Krishna, and there's a morning liturgy. Some rituals are done. And so there's a ritualistic worship that you can do yourself, or a priest may do it, and then the others who are watching, then they sing. And we sing songs which are deep meditation on on actually Krishna waking up. It's a morning time, it's before dawn, and we've woken up, and we sing the songs, remembering how Krishna in his pastimes, he's resting at night and he wakes up, and we greet, "Good morning, Krishna." And so this is called Mangal Arti. Mangal Arti. It means the auspicious ceremony of worship.
Yes.
Actually, Mangal comes from Mang Dhatu in Sanskrit, which means to move.
Yes.
And the idea is that if you perform this ritual in the morning, then you'll move throughout your whole day without being impeded by any obstacles as well. And so then after the congregational singing, then we sit down and we do a silent meditation, which involves sitting and remembering some Gayatri mantras. These mantras are never spoken out loud, and they're given very secretly, confidentially, privately by the spiritual master to the disciple when the disciple has reached a particular level of maturity. And so those mantras are remembered 3 times a day, at the time of sunrise, at noon, and at sunset.
Yes.
So after remembering those Gayatri mantras, it's a silent meditation, and the mantras are only the vrittis, the waves of the sound of mantra, only produced within the mind, not verbally. And then after that we have a mala, a rosary. So almost all the religions have a rosary, where they say a prayer or they count the names or the qualities of God. And then we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, sitting peacefully on rosary for some hours. We try to complete 100,000 names of Krishna daily, which is 64 times around the rosary of 108 beads, saying the 16 names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, on each bead. So 16 times 108 times 64 it's actually a little bit over 100,000 names. So we try to complete that every day. And then after that, generally in the morning time we have a study session where a learned person who's deeply versed in the Sanskrit Vedic scriptures will read some verses and give some explanation to allow everyone to go more deeply into initially the metaphysics of Vedanta, and then on top of that the aesthetics, the beautiful side of spiritual life as well. And then after studying, there are so many services to perform. I live in an ashram in Vrindavan, India. I've been there in India for 25 years. And so in the ashram there's the practical things of life, which means sweeping, cleaning, cutting the vegetables, preparing the food for the lunchtime, and various types of outreach activities to go out from the ashram and meet with people and introduce them to the practices of bhakti and so on. So there's so many different types of services take place throughout the day. And then there's another ritualistic worship, an arti at noon, and another one in the evening at 6 o'clock. After that, after each one we remember the silent Gayatri mantras again. And in the evening we have another study session. So that's the day. It's full of devotion from beginning to end. Also, we often go on pilgrimages as well to visit various holy places, which may be places where when the Krishna did Avatar, he descended to this world, where he did particular pastimes. We visit those places and become absorbed in the mood of that place. And also we visit, for example, the shrines of saints who have passed away, whatever, this century, previous century, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. We go and we offer respect to them and hear about their great spiritual achievements, in the hope that some of their wonderful qualities will rub off on us and will slowly conform in our life to their standard of devotion. So the day has a great variety of activities, but they're all doing the same thing, that is shifting the attention from the material energy to the focusing on Krishna and his spiritual energy.
Okay.
So that's our practice in a nutshell.
Beautiful. Oh, the whole day of devotion.
Yes.
Where lives the soul from your point of view? Where lives the soul?
Where does the soul live?
Yeah.
Well, it is said that Esho nur atma cetasa veditavya yasmin prana panchada sambhishesha, that the soul is an atom of spiritual energy, and it is floating in the heart chakra. And just as the sun in one place is present everywhere by its rays of light, so the soul, which is anu, that means a spiritual atom, is situated in the heart chakra, and it spreads its rays of consciousness up to the surface of the skin, to the extent of your body, like that. So the soul is there, and at the end of when the end of life comes, then the pran pushes the soul, and it leaves through one of the nadis. Now, perhaps you know there are chakras from the Mooladhara chakra, and then the Swadhisthana chakra, Manipur chakra, Anahata chakra, Vishuddhi chakra, Agya chakra, and Sahasrara chakra. And they're all joined by Shushumna nadi, one main channel, pranic channel, called Shushumna nadi. So most people, that Shushumna nadi is blocked. So then there are the other main channels coming from the right testicle, going around like this to the right nostril. That's called Pingala. It's the sun side, the hot side, or the male side. And then from the left side, coming up to the left nostril, is a Ida, and that's the cooling side. So our pran is always moving, either in one side or another. And you can check that. If you breathe, you do alternate nostril breathing. You breathe through one side and then the other. You might find that one side is more open than the other. And every 90 minutes it changes, it moves to the other side. And then it changes again. Because the pran is going sometimes to the sun side, sometimes to the moon side, like this. And when it goes to the right side, then you tend to be more passionate. And when it moves to the left, you tend to be a little bit more dull. So there's rajas, passion, and tamas, ignorance. And that's why sometimes we're alert during the day, and sometimes we get a bit like this. And it's because the pran is moving, you see. And what we want to be at least in sattva. That is the balance, the mode of goodness. But the central pranic channel is blocked, you see. And that's why we tend to be either kind of frantic or sleepy. But when we're completely in balance and focused, then the pran starts to move in the Shushumna nadi. It's in the center. So people do that by pranayama. But you can do it by chanting Hare Krishna. Because when you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it begins with the movement of pran in the Mooladhara chakra, and it slowly rises and opens up the Shushumna nadi, and expands the mind and the intelligence. So all the effects of the mechanical practice of pranayama, the breathing exercises in Astanga Yoga, all those effects can come by the correctly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, even. And so when the time of death, before we go to death, let's deal with life. When you're asleep, the soul is down here, and then when you're awake, the pran lifts it up. And then when you sleep, it goes back down again. And that's why we say, I'm falling asleep. We have this falling feeling, because the soul is actually going down due to the movements of pran. And from the Anahata chakra, there are 101 nadis. We've spoken about 3 nadis or 3 pranic channels, but actually in the body there are 72,000 nadis. And they're going everywhere like veins. They're actually the subtle basis of our nervous system. And so at the time of death, then the soul will leave. The pran will push the soul out of one of those 101 channels. And if the soul leaves by any of the channels below this, let's say let's just draw a diameter here, below this diameter of the heart chakra, if it leaves by any angle below, it goes to a lower existence. Like if you can go down into animal life or into an insect life or whatever, depending on the karma. And if the soul leaves at any angle going up, it goes to a higher existence, like of some celestial beings, some higher beings. In Sanskrit they're so-called siddhas, charanas, gandharvas, devatas, like this. But if one will go directly up, up through the Sushumna Nadi and leave that way, then one will be liberated from this world. So the yogis in meditation, they practice meditating and withdrawing their consciousness into the heart and then seeing the nadis, seeing the channels. And so they practice that when their time of death comes, that they leave through the correct nadi, because that will decide the destination in the next life.
Wow.
So you say, where's the soul? That's where he is, and that's what he's doing, and these are his potential avenues of the avenues of his future prospects in this life and the next life.
Wow.
So all of these things are described in detail in the Vedanta Sutra, which is our tradition. That's our main philosophical text. And the Vedanta Sutra is a brief text of about 554 aphorisms. And then this has been expanded into 18,000 verses of Sanskrit poetry in a text called the Bhagavat Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam. And so that is considered to be the supermost ultimate of all the Vedic literatures, Srimad Bhagavatam. And there you find the full description of all the gross and subtle anatomy of the body, the anatomy of the psychological body, the astral body, that is the mind, intelligence, the ego, and conditioned consciousness, and also the descriptions of the spiritual world and the practices how to realize that plane as well. So that's really, if you want to learn about Vedic culture and Vedic philosophy, the supermost literature and the last contribution of the compiler of the Vedas is Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay. What means enlightenment for you?
Enlightenment means love for Krishna.
Okay.
You see, if you look at love from a metaphysical point of view, it's considered to be a mixture of 2 energies of God. One is called Samvit, the consciousness potency that gives light, and the other is called Hladini, the pleasure potency, which gives joy. So when the potency of light is mixed together with the potency of joy, that's called Bhakti Shakti, the energy of devotion. So what happens is, for example, now, all the movement, your breathing, your yawning, sneezing, blinking, all the movements of the body are performed by pran, movement of pran. But also that pran goes into the mind, and all your thoughts and feelings, memories, analysis, functioning of intelligence, it's all done by very fine movements of pran. That's called chitta vritti. So what happens is when you practice bhakti yoga, then the vritti, that is the waves or the function of bhakti shakti, these devotional energies of consciousness and bliss, it descends, just as God as an avatar descends to this world to do a lila. So the bhakti shakti, the energy of devotion, appears as an aprakrita pran. That means a supernatural pran, and it mixes with your pran. It mixes with your natural functions and basically hijacks them, it takes them over. And so now the bhakti shakti, or the energy of devotion, is now responsible for all of your thoughts and feelings and activities.
Yeah.
So that's enlightenment, where our entire body, senses, mind, intelligence, all aspects of our awareness have become essentially possessed by love, by the Bhakti Shakti, the aprakrita pran, the supernatural pran of devotion.
Yeah. What's your personal mission here on earth?
Well, we consider ourselves simply the servant of the servant of the servants of Krishna.
Yeah.
So when Krishna comes to this world, he wants to inspire devotion in others so they can be freed from the sufferings of life and attain the love and the happiness that everyone is really searching for, but searching in the wrong place, searching in the reflection. If you have a meal and a mirror, you can see the reflection of the meal in the mirror.
Yeah.
But if you lick the reflection, there's no taste there.
Yeah.
And so that's what life is all about here in this world. Trying to enjoy and being disappointed that what we're trying to enjoy wasn't really what we're looking for. So that's very tragic. So when Krishna comes to this world, he's very merciful, and he wants to inspire the living entities to leave their egocentricity, self-centeredness, selfishness, lust, anger, greed, pride. Leave all of these things behind and develop devotion and enter into the plane of love. So every person in our tradition considers themselves to be the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Because, for example, in my life, I served my spiritual master for many years. Now he went to Krishna, and so he left this world and went to see Krishna. But he was the servant of his guru, and he was the servant of his guru and his guru, and the line goes back thousands of years, 37 generations between myself and my guru, and then up to Krishna himself when Krishna was here 5,000 years ago. So we are quite literally the servant of the servant of the servant. 37 times to Krishna. And so Krishna's mission to help others is unbroken, and so it's my response. If you say, well, what is my mission? It's not my mission, it's Krishna's mission, and I'm just a little part of that mission, and I'm just trying to continue that through the pages of history, that each generation will have a chance to serve Krishna. And so on the one side, we have our own personal spiritual practice that we try to cultivate to realize pure love for God, and on the other side we have the outreach, giving others the opportunity to also have that experience. So that's called achar and prachar. Achar means your own behavior to develop devotion, and prachar means how you, by your own example, share that practice with others, so that they can also enter into the experience of bhakti as well. So that's my not my mission, it's Krishna's mission, and I'm just a small part of that.
Okay, two short final questions. You talked about chanting the holy name 64 rounds. While you're doing it, how does it feel in your body when you're chanting?
Well, you know, this is very interesting. There's a saying in our tradition, apana bhajana kata na koi bhajata tata, which means don't tell other people about your internal experience. And there's a reason for that. Just like if there's a candle in a house and it's giving light and some heat, and outside it's cold. So if you open the door, the wind may come and blow it out. So it's said that if you're having some spiritual realization and you speak about it, opening your mouth is like opening the door, and then the wind of pride will extinguish your spiritual progress. Because love and pride, they're like oil and water, they don't mix. So if someone is having spiritual realizations and then they go around telling, well, this is my experience and this is, in order to impress people, it's doing the exact opposite. So the specific details of one's internal realization you shouldn't share, but I can say something just in principle, and just in principle, that if one is sitting and meditating, chanting the holy name, then first of all the mind becomes very peaceful, and the senses, you know, our senses are always demanding something. I want to touch this or smell that, taste that. And for many people, their life is simply being dragged by their senses through various experiences, both pleasurable and suffering. And so the control of the senses is very important. And what you'll find is, even though it's difficult to control the senses, just by chanting the names of God, it's so powerful that the senses all become peaceful. So that's the first stage. And then gradually, the ego, that I am the doer, that I am the doer of activities, begins to dissolve. And the soul begins to realize that I am not chanting. I am not this physical body, I am the soul, but I am just aware that I have a body. And the mantra is coming by itself. In other words, when we have ego, we think, I am chanting. Whereas, when the ego begins to dissolve, we experience, no, the mantra is coming to me. I'm not producing the mantra is coming and taking over the functions of my pran. It's moving my tongue, controlling my breathing, controlling my mind. And so then you have the spirit of surrender to God in the form of the holy name. And then in the proportion of how deep your meditation is, as we mentioned before, one has realization of Krishna's form or qualities, associates and pastime, etc., depending on the depths of one's meditation. So definitely after chanting for some time, you will feel the peacefulness of the senses, and then you start, as the ego dissolves, you start to feel, in one sense, disembodied. You're aware of the body, but you're not trapped in it. But rather it just becomes, in Bhagavad Gita, it's called Chetra and Chetragya. The body is like a field, and you're a person standing in the field. So that you know, when you're standing in the field, you can see the field, but you know it's not you. You're detached, you're very detached from it. And so you become aware that you're not the body. Because generally we feel, I am this, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm restless, I'm whatever. But to feel that experience of freedom from identifying with the body is wonderful. And then as we become more absorbed in remembering Krishna, even you lose awareness of the physical body as well, and become just fully absorbed in the meditation on the beauty of Krishna.
I've meditated for 5 or 6 years, and at the beginning I sat there and I had some thoughts. Oh, maybe you should go back on the stock market and invest something. And I said, oh, it feels good. And I went to the stock market and lost money. And can you tell me a little bit about these inner voices?
Yes.
And when do I know? Is it my ego voice, or is it from God? Or
Yes, if you hear a voice saying gamble on the stock market, I can guarantee it's not Krishna. Okay. So we have our conscious mind and subconscious mind.
Yes.
The subconscious mind is a collection of impressions. Just like if the tide goes out and a person walks on the beach in the damp sand, they leave footprints. So in the same way, every experience you have in life leaves footprints that then recede into your subconscious mind. So in Sanskrit they're called samskars. Samskars, it means impressions.
Yes.
And you have so many millions of impressions from this life and from previous lives. And these are things that you've seen, smelled, tasted, everything, all your experiences, and they're all recorded. The subconscious mind never forgets that. You can forget. But every experience is there in the subconscious mind. So then what happens is, you're in a particular situation, and that situation triggers an impression to come out of the subconscious mind into the conscious mind. And when it appears, then you become, your attention latches onto that, and it becomes what is called vasana, a desire. You see? And then generally we act on that desire. So what happened was, before you invested in the stock market, it made a samskar, impression in your subconscious mind. You sat down to meditate, then something triggered that samskar to come into your mind, and you latched onto it, and that's a desire now. And it made you get up and go to the computer and whatever, do the investment, you see. And that's essentially how everyone is living. You see, someone may say, well, your life, it's full of discipline and everything, you're not very free. And we say, no, we actually have true freedom. Because our existence is not being dictated by the samskars, the echoes of the past.
Yeah.
You see? Whereas for the general person, they fully identify with their thoughts. So the samskars, the impressions are coming just one after another, and they latch onto them and just do whatever. Now I want to eat ice cream, now I want to buy a pair of shoes, now I want to go to the cinema, now I want to do this. And it's not actually, in Christianity they would call that it's not the active intellect, it's a passive intellect. In other words, you're not really thinking, you're on autopilot. Did you ever get that feeling sometimes? Like your life is just like on autopilot?
Of course.
Because the thoughts are coming and you're just going with it, and the days are going by. And you're not really having like a really original thought, or doing something which is not in the flow.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say just go with the flow.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That flow is just your karma.
Yeah.
See, that's how karma unfolds. Our destiny is fixed by karma, and it's fixed because the samskars are coming. They're in a queue to come one after another.
Yeah.
And then we're just acting on them. So as soon as a person develops the power of introspection, that means I am not a witness of the world from the vantage point of my mind, but I am a witness of my mind from the vantage point of my soul. So that's introspection, the power of introspection. In Sanskrit it's called shakshitva, being a witness. And so one has to, instead of watching the world through the prism of the mind, watch the mind from the vantage point of the soul. And so in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna said, Apuryamanam machala patistam samudrapa pravisanti yadvat, which means, just as rivers are always flowing into the ocean, but the ocean remains within its boundary. So in the same way, a person into whose mind the samskars, the impressions are flowing, the desires from the subconscious mind are appearing in the conscious mind. A person who doesn't follow them, but is deep like the ocean, just lets them come, but doesn't act on them, doesn't overflow into an action, then that person can attain peace. So try to be situated in shakshitva, the position of witnesshood of your own mind, and when the thoughts come, don't latch onto them, don't think that it's you, it's not you, it's just an echo of a past experience, and just watch it come and let it go. And continue to chant the holy names of Krishna. Slowly they'll come and come. After some time, they'll stop coming. Because it is actually rajas, or passion, which is stirring up the impressions and bringing them into the mind. And when the mind becomes in equilibrium, then these impressions will tend not to be activated.
Okay. Prem Prayojan, thank you very much. Such an honor.
It was a pleasure to hear your questions and share this teaching. Not my teaching, it's eternal teaching of the Vedas. I'm just trying to become a conduit, a channel to share that teaching with the world. And you know, just like when you have a tube, if it's blocked, then nothing can flow through it. But if you, by force, you put some liquid through there, it will clear the tube. So by speaking to you, and by speaking to all of you, this flow of spiritual knowledge is coming, and it's cleaning me too. So we're all slowly getting clean and purified. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.